Hey now.
Brand new episode of Scott Fox After 9 lined up and ready to go. I hope you can give me a little bit of your time today because I'm going to try and give you a snapshot of all the different things that are relevant and happening today that you should probably know about. On this episode, I'm going to be talking about interest rates. Quick snapshot here. As I record, the Bank of Canada is preparing to make an announcement about interest rates, and it looks like they're going to lower them. That's what most economists agree, but they don't agree on how much. I think it's got to be at least a half-point cut. We are in a recession. We are shedding jobs like crazy, and we're having a heck of a time getting homes built right now because even the developers and the home builders don't want to go all in on this because interest rates are still too high. And a quick history lesson. The Bank of Canada says their target inflation rate is 2%. It was at 1.7%, and they didn't cut rates. Even though it was under their target, they still refused to cut interest rates. Why would they do that? Because every time they keep those interest rates higher than they need to be, the banks make money. That payment that we make every month for our home, for our car, and all those other things, they make more money when the interest rates are high. Well, yesterday, inflation went back up to 1.9%, and it looks like they're going to cut. Why would they cut at 1.9 when they wouldn't cut at 1.7? Very simple. Our economy is on the brink. We are in bad shape financially, and it looks like the government of Canada is getting ready to print a ton of money. That is going to raise inflation like crazy. Every time the government prints money, that's where inflation comes from, and we have every reason to believe that they're going to go on a money printing spree, but I'm going to save that part until we get to the finance minister, François-Philippe Champagne. While I'm talking about federal ministers, I'm going to talk about Chrystia Freeland in this episode. She has now stepped down from her cabinet position because she is going to be the new special envoy for Canada to Ukraine. I'm telling you, I've said it before. I'll say it again. There's something about Ukraine and Chrystia Freeland being appointed to that brand new position. She's not replacing anybody. We invented a position for her to go into. And I guess it makes sense. She's fluent in the language. She knows the area. She's got a lot of history with Ukraine, but she's also tied to some very interesting individuals who I know have a very vested financial interest in Ukraine. We're going to talk today on this episode more about Charlie Kirk. Yesterday, Tucker Carleson, among others, did some really, really interesting stuff on his podcast, and I'm going to let you hear that. I'm also going to talk about the FBI, the Epstein files, and a whole lot more, all coming up on this episode of Scott Fox After 9. To start, let's start off light and get heavier as the episode goes on. I'm going to start off now with the audio that has now been released from air traffic control and a pilot who lost their engine over the city of Toronto. This could have been tragic. It really could have been, but this pilot seems to have handled things well. This is about 2 minutes long. I'm going to pause it at various intervals and talk through it, but give this a listen. It is a pilot informing air traffic control on a fairly routine flight that engine power has been lost.
City Center, X-ray Golf Charlie, we're looking to land at City Center. Is it possible to do a lap around the CN Tower?
X-ray Golf Charlie, City Altimeter 3025, cleared in City Control Zone for your orbit. Keep it north of the airport at 2500.
Roger, we'll remain north of the airport at 2500, X-ray Golf Charlie.
Okay, so at this point, the pilot, who was coming from Orillia, north of Toronto, down to the City Centre Airport. That's the island airport in Toronto that you see in the visual anytime you see Scotiabank Arena or Rogers Centre or the Toronto waterfront. Everybody got their bearings here? Okay, she wants to loop around the CN Tower, do a little sightseeing, and then she's going to land at the island airport. Going to keep it at 2,500 feet. Okay, that's all very, very routine. Then something very not routine happened.
City Center, I think I might have an engine failure.
X-ray Golf Charlie, can you make it to the airport?
Negative.
Can you make it to the airport? Negative. Now we've got a problem. Air traffic control knows that if the pilot has lost engine power and they don't have enough momentum to make it to the airport, this plane is going down somewhere it's not supposed to go down. Despite knowing that, this air traffic controller does the job magically. And so does the pilot. Everybody does what they have to do and what their training tells them to do in order to get this plane on the ground safely. This is going to be an intense, probably about a minute here. Check it out.
Okay, can you find anywhere to land? X-ray Lima,
I'm looking.
X-11334. X-ray Golf Charlie, how many people on your aircraft?
We got 3 people on board. Okay, Tower, I'm not exactly seeing anywhere to land here.
X-ray Golf Charlie, can you make it, maybe find a highway or a street that doesn't seem very busy or a park or something?
Can you find a street that doesn't look that busy, or a highway, or a park? Wow. Yeah, this is scary stuff here. This is a woman who has got passengers on her plane, not going to make it to the airport. She's got to set it down somewhere in the city. Very limited options. I mean, Toronto is one of the most congested cities in the world. Not a lot of places to land. However, just over the horizon, there is a turf soccer field right near a school. That might be her only option here.
I am looking.
Tower from Mike Quebec. Mike, roughly where is that aircraft? We're equipped for surveillance.
Yeah, they're over Bloor Street about a mile east of the Don Valley Parker right now.
I'm landing at a soccer field. There are people, though.
Okay, can you just maybe find a gap with no people?
Find a gap where there's no people when you're going to land on that soccer field. This is going to be a pretty intense landing here for this pilot. Wow.
Mike Quebec, Mike, you probably heard they think they landed in a soccer field about near Bloor Street about a mile and a half east of the Don Valley Parkway.
Okay, Mike Quebec. Mike, I will have a look there. We have proper surveillance equipment. I'll let you know what we see there.
City Tower, Light Flight 2, medevac.
Light Flight 2, medevac, City.
We're going to do a quick turn here to orbit over, see if we can see locate this aircraft for you.
Light Flight 2, medevac, thanks. There's going to be a Diamond Twin Star orbiting about that area as well. They're at 2,000 feet. They're hopefully in a soccer field but near Bloor Street about a mile and a half east of the Don Valley Parkway.
Okay, check that. Are we looking for a fixed wing or a helicopter?
It's a Piper Cherokee with 3 people on board.
Okay, check that. We have the...
Okay, I'm going to leave it there because the pilot did manage to avoid everybody. No major damage and 0 injuries. She got the plane on the ground. I just want to congratulate that pilot and the air traffic controller. It's pretty remarkable how that went down, and obviously their training was very, very good. The first thing you got to do is stay calm. And it doesn't seem like a situation you should be calm in when your plane has lost power right over a very congested city. But they did it. They got the plane on the ground. The pilot got the plane landed. It's probably a write-off at this point, I would suggest. There was some damage to the front. It took out a fence, but nobody got hurt. And I think that's amazing and a testament to the professionals that we have working in air traffic control and also the pilots that are in the skies. Nice to see how that worked out. Great job to everybody involved. And the Transportation Safety Board has already released some findings from its preliminary investigation, and they believe, it was as simple as the engine failed. Why did that happen? Was the routine maintenance done? Did it have gas in it? All questions that are going to get answered, but either way, a job well done to everybody involved. Now I'm going to move on. Yesterday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford was at the International Plowing Match. This is an annual tradition that goes back decades. In fact, I used to go there to the International Plowing Match on school field trips. And the part that I hated the most about that field trip was every year we all had to stand around and watch the premier of the day. I think for me, it was Bill Davis and Mike Harris were the 2 premiers I saw do it. Had to try and plow a straight line in a tractor. That's part of the International Plowing Match. I don't know what skill set it takes to plow in a straight line, but it seems to be something that eludes many of our elected individuals. I think that's something that we should probably leave to the farmers who have perfected the art, because I've never seen a premier or an opposition leader do it as well as a farmer does. But nonetheless, they were there for fun and the photo op, and yesterday some of the media spoke to Premier Ford. One of the things that came up was his nation-building projects. Premier Ford has some things that he wants done in Ontario, and he's given his wish list to Premier Carney. Yesterday, Premier Ford seemed very confident that his tunnel under the 401 across the top of Toronto is going to be on the nation building projects list. Is Ottawa now going to join with Queen's Park, Premier Ford, and build a tunnel? It would actually be 3 tunnels, to be honest with you. The bottom one would be transit. The second layer would be, I guess that would be eastbound traffic. And the top layer would be westbound traffic. And then, of course, there's the surface routes. That's going to be an expensive project. It's going to take a long, long time to do. And based on what I've heard from people discussing this, they don't seem to think that this is a very good use of money. I'm still here for it. I'm open to it. I think a tunnel isn't necessarily the worst idea. I just don't know how they're going to keep it on budget and get it open on time. I also don't know if we spend that money now and take away our ability to maybe buy back the 407 for a tunnel that won't be built for at least 20 years, by the sounds of it. But anyway, that was one of the things that the Premier talked about. But that's not what I'm going to play here. Yesterday, he was asked by some reporter about his plan to get rid of speed enforcement cameras. You'll recall last week I played the audio from Premier Ford where he called them a cash grab. And he said if municipalities don't get rid of that photo radar, I'll help them get rid of it. He's doubling down, everybody. He does not want these cameras. Listen to this.
Premier, you're all about enforcement, and these speed cameras are proven to work. They slow drivers down. The only
thing.
Hold on a second. Who is this reporter here? Who is this reporter? Sounds like she's trying to have a bit of a gotcha moment with the Premier, and she's not even smart enough to know that that report that she's trying to cite is complete nonsense. There's a report that said, first off, the report that all of the municipal leaders are leaning on to try and justify these cameras is deeply flawed. That's part of the reason I've got an open invitation out to Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown, or now I notice that Burlington, my hometown, Mayor Marianne Mead Ward, now she's putting those cameras in Burlington. Any mayor who truly believes these cameras are about public safety, you've got an open invitation to come on this podcast and debate me. Debate me. Now, I'm going to warn you, do your homework, because I've done mine. Do your homework and come in here. Bring me your budget and bring me the numbers of revenue that camera generates or those cameras generate. And let's have a discussion about public safety right here on the podcast. Now, I know none of the mayors are going to take me up on this. There are several of them that listen to this podcast daily. They're radio silent right now. They are not reaching out to say, I'll come on and debate you about these cameras, because they know it's complete nonsense. They're not about public safety. It's a cash grab. And the Premier is going to correct this reporter right here.
Premier, you're all about enforcement, and these speed cameras are proven to work. They slow drivers down. The
only thing proven is that they take money out of taxpayers' pockets. I know how to slow down traffic. I can put it to a halt, slow it down. I've spent 4 years doing that at City Hall, and they know it too. When they talk to me privately, they come out and they tell me straight out, well, it's not about that. We need the money, and we're going to put it towards, roads and this and that. So if you want to slow down traffic, especially people that aren't in the neighborhood and they drive by, they don't know there's a speed camera there, so they really aren't slowing down.
So the Premier is absolutely right. Those cameras are ineffective, and there's much, much, much more benefit to slowing people down in the minute, not punishing them 7 to 10 days later with a punitive ticket and a victim surcharge. And no one so far has been able to tell me who the victim is. So the Premier is also saying there, the mayors privately, when there's no reporters or cameras around, are telling him, yeah, listen, we know these things are not about public safety, but they make us a heck of a lot of money, and we need that money. These are mayors that can't follow a budget. These are mayors that, rather than cut their spending and be responsible stewards of the taxpayers' money, would much rather just raise money in other ways and not have to face the electorate after they raised property taxes again. I've got this new slogan that I am floating around for municipalities that don't seem to want to get the message. Listen carefully. Next fall, fire them all. Next fall, fire them all. There's going to be municipal elections in Ontario next year, right around this time. And I think any municipality that has got these cameras in them, that mayor and those city councilors got to go. The fact that Burlington just started this campaign yesterday after the premier said, get rid of them or I'll help you, makes me think the mayor of Burlington is just looking for a fight with Queen's Park. Careful, Madam Mayor. You're making me very interested in municipal politics. Very interested in municipal politics. If you want to go down this road and double down on these cameras, they got to go because you're ripping off the people of Burlington and in every municipality. You're getting ripped off because of these cameras. It's not about public safety. Here's the rest of Premier Ford.
But we'll get them to slow down, but we'll work with them too.
How are you going to get them to slow down?
Very simple. There's different methodologies. You do the little circles, you do the speed bumps, you do the flashing signs.
Is that going to cost more money?
Well, you know something? It's going to save the taxpayers money because when you give out over 30,000 tickets in a 3-month period and they're raising hundreds of millions of dollars off the taxpayers, it's not fair, especially people going 2 or 3.
Who is this reporter? And is this a professional reporter or is this just somebody on social media that got a chance to ask the premier questions? I have no idea who this person is, but what an antagonist. Holy cow. Remember when reporters used to just ask the pointed questions and they weren't leading and they didn't have that antagonistic tone? The good old days when there was journalistic integrity. I love it. I miss it, to be honest with you. The premier is quite right. These cameras are making tens of millions of dollars. Tens of millions. We're not talking about, you know what? People were speeding, so we're going to slap them with a $20 or $30 fine and remind them not to do that again. These fines are punitive. You can't fight them. I've talked about this at great length. The premier is absolutely right. They got to go. 30,000 tickets in 3 months on some of these cameras. Let me just say this. If these cameras were as effective as the advocates for the cameras like to lead on that they are, we should be seeing lower tickets because people would be getting the message. Clearly, they're not working at changing people's behavior. There's a whole bunch of unintended consequences, though. Hey, if you live on a street adjacent to where there's a camera, I'm sure the speeds on your street have gone way up because people know there's a camera there and they avoid the camera and they speed down your street to get around it. These cameras have got to go. I am very, very happy to see Premier Ford sticking up for the taxpayers. He has to do it. We got to get rid of these cameras. And please remember, if the cameras aren't gone, next fall, we fire them all. That's when everybody's got to get out and vote in municipal elections and send a message to these mayors that you cannot take advantage of your citizens the way you are. That's it for that. Let's move on again. Let's talk a little bit about immigration here. One of the things that has come up numerous times over the last couple of weeks is the temporary foreign worker program. Last week, I did a fairly in-depth segment on this particular phenomenon, and basically this is the way it works. We got a whole bunch of companies that feel it is way too expensive to pay local teenagers or local seniors or whomever to do jobs in their business. So they apply to use temporary foreign workers, and they can get around that with a whole bunch of sleazy stuff. And we're not just talking about farms. It used to be that farming, agriculture in general, was one of the areas that used temporary foreign workers. I'm also told that hotels like to use temporary foreign workers, and they'll say it's because there's no Canadians that want to do these dirty jobs. We hire temporary foreign workers to clean hotels and do the laundry because no Canadian wants to do that job. And they'll tell us the same thing about the farms. Here's the thing. Maybe that was true at one point, but now we have so many people unemployed in Canada that we can't be bringing in temporary foreign workers until we are convinced that there are no Canadians that want these jobs. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and suggest there are many that do want them. Companies like Tim Hortons, Booster Juice, Canadian Tire, all looking to hire temporary foreign workers when there are Canadians looking for jobs. I'm going to make a note about that particular phenomenon in just a sec. But first off, let's hear a question that was asked yesterday in the House of Commons. Here is Calgary Nose Hill Member of Parliament Michelle Rempel-Garner asking a question.
Be bogus. And new data we obtained today shows the profound cost of this. The question is to the Immigration Minister. There are a staggering 300,000 people in Canada with pending asylum claims. Many of these will be bogus. And new data we obtained today shows the profound cost of this failure. Since 2016, the Liberals have increased the cost of the interim federal health program, which includes support for benefits for people who have likely made bogus claims, by nearly 1,200%. Wow. This includes massive spending on benefits Canadians aren't eligible for. Can the minister explain why?
Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the question. We just ran a campaign on restoring sustainability to our immigration system to ease pressure on housing and social services, something the Conservatives also voted for. Our immigration levels plan reduced targets for permanent and resident. That plan is working. New student and temporary worker admissions are down more than 60%. Asylum claims are down 1/3, and new permanent residents will be down 20% at the end of the year. With Bill C-2, we can even do more, and I urge parliamentarians to support it.
How did this system get this out of control? A 1,200% increase is what Michelle Rempel-Garner pointed out there. 1,200%. Many of these benefits actual Canadians aren't even eligible for. Here's what I was thinking about this program the other day. You know, we've got all these companies, and anybody can search online to see who has applied to use temporary foreign workers. In fact, Michelle shares a different one every day on her X account. And when she does that, she also points out how many people in the local area are unemployed, including youth. It's one thing for your average Tim Hortons to apply to use the temporary foreign worker program. It's one thing for them to apply. I disagree with it. I think there's Canadians that want these jobs, but they can do whatever they want. They can apply. How are these applications getting approved? Think about this for a second. If you're a bureaucrat in Ottawa and your job is to watch the taxpayer purse and make sure people are following the rules and such, if you get an application from a Tim Hortons in British Columbia that says there are no Canadians willing to work in our Tim Hortons for $36 an hour, do you believe that? Or do you just rubber stamp it and say, yeah, all right, I believe that. That sounds legit. Nobody wants to do the job. Like just an ounce of common sense would tell us that that's just simply ridiculous. $36 an hour, I'm sure you could find a lot of people that want to do it and are more than qualified to sling coffee and donuts all day. It is preposterous that they would approve these. Why on earth would any bureaucrat allow that to pass the simple smell test? Stinks. This stinks. It sounds like they're trying to pull a fast one on the government and on the taxpayers. We want to bring in a temporary foreign worker. Why? Are you getting a kickback? Is that like your cousin that you're trying to bring here from another country? What's the real reason that you're applying to do this? Is it just because minimum wage got too high in Canada? And if it is because minimum wage got too high in Canada, I don't think any government's going to come in and lower it. So you're probably just going to have to fold up shop. If you can't afford to pay the minimum wage, then you can't afford to have employees. That's all there is to it. Who are the bureaucrats in Ottawa that are approving these completely ridiculous applications to bring in a temporary foreign worker and pay them $36 an hour under the premise that there's no Canadians that want the job or are willing to do it or are qualified for it? To work at Tim Hortons. It's completely crazy. But I'm going to keep moving on. Let's go. I like the pace we're going at today. Topic to topic, back to back. Oh, it's just great. Here is yesterday. Pierre Poilievre was speaking outside the House of Commons, and he got into it a bit with one of the reporters.
You said yesterday that you're going to support the Liberals when there's things to support, oppose them when necessary. When it comes to the budget, where are you going to land on that? Are you going to support it?
Which budget?
The one November 4th that was announced today.
Do you have a copy you can give me?
I don't,
okay,
but...
when you get one, then I'll answer your question.
Are there...
I know some people are laughing about that, and some people are taking issue with that. I'm just going to say it. I like Pierre Poilievre, but he didn't need to do that. You didn't need to be that condescending. Yes, of course, you're not going to comment now on a budget that you haven't seen and still isn't coming for more than 6 weeks. It's going to be more than 6 weeks. In case you missed that announcement yesterday, the federal Liberals have announced their budget isn't going to come out until November the 4th. How long has it been since we had a budget? Last year, you'll recall, we were supposed to get that fiscal update from Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland when she was the finance minister for Justin Trudeau. She pushed it back, and then she quit and said, I can't live with a deficit this large, and tabled the report and walked out. never even really got discussed. It was right before Christmas. That said, we were $62 billion in deficit. $62 billion deficit. Now the Liberals are giving indications that it's going to be well over $100 million. $100 billion in deficit. Why isn't this a priority? You know, I keep hearing the Prime Minister say we're in this existential crisis and the crisis of our lifetimes, and we've got to do this and respond like that and blah, blah, blah. We need a budget. Every household has a budget in some way. Every business has a budget. How can a country not have a budget again? And now they're pushing it back to the beginning of November. Now, why would they do that? It's very simple. They're hoping that they can get enough good news out between now and November that people will not notice how bad our finances are. If we're $100 billion in deficit, that's basically insolvent. The amount of money we're going to have to print to try and bail ourselves out of that is going to do nothing but cause inflation to skyrocket. I'm really not sure that any of the things the government says they want to do and that they're going to do are going to get done because we just don't have the money. The amount of money we would have to print is going to send inflation through the roof. And that's just a fact. That's where inflation comes from, mainly from money printing. But Pierre Poilievre didn't need to answer that question that way. It was condescending and it was rude. That's part of the reason that people have a dislike for Pierre. And I hope that when it comes up in the future, other opportunities to school a reporter, pick your moments and pick the reporters that need to be schooled. That was a fair question. Are you going to support the budget? Pierre, all you had to do is say, we got to wait and see the budget. I don't know why he answered it like that, but that was an unforced error on the part of Mr. Poilievre. He did, however, have a lot of other things to say. Let's hear a little bit more from his news conference outside the House of Commons yesterday.
This is exactly the opposite of what he promised. It's amazing. And when I said that Mark Carney was just the same as Justin Trudeau, everyone said that was unfair. And you know what? They were right. It's unfair to Justin Trudeau. Mark Carney is more expensive than Justin Trudeau. His deficit is even bigger than Justin Trudeau. His spending on bureaucracy and consultants much higher than Justin Trudeau. He is doing Mark Carney with his rampant, unbudgeted deficit spending that drives up food and housing costs, is breaking his promise and doing another Liberal bait and switch. Conservatives are demanding the government reverse this reckless Liberal spending to bring down the deficit, inflation, and the cost of living before his November budget comes forward.
That's it. There's your sweet spot right there, Pierre. That's where you got to live, in that area there. Canadians understand. They know that the books were bad. The reason we aren't getting a budget for another 6 weeks is because the Liberals are really trying to hide from the fact that they're going to have a deficit over $100 billion. There is going to be massive, massive cuts to services and to the civil service, the people who work for the government. Major cuts. But at the same time, they're also going to increase spending even more to do what they call investments. Investments into housing and investments into this and that. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that government didn't build houses. Home builders built houses. The government just sort of got out of the way and approved the land they were going to use and the way they were going to build it. And that was the extent of the government's involvement. Now we're spending $13 billion on this. And frankly, I don't understand why. I'm not quite sure why government is spending money to build houses unless, of course, people won't own those homes. The government is going to own those homes. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Where have you heard that before? You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Think. I know you've heard that somewhere, but I'm just going to leave it right there. One of the people I think we need to hear from at this point is the finance minister, François-Philippe Champagne. He also did a news conference outside the House of Commons. By the way, a number of people did these outside the House yesterday because even though it was only the second day of Parliament, and even though Parliament hasn't sat in months, the Prime Minister didn't show up for question period yesterday. He was there for the first day, skipped day 2. But he was in Ottawa. He was at the House of Commons where his office is. He was in meetings and didn't go to question period. I don't understand how that's acceptable either. Prime Minister, people want to see you. They want leadership at a time where they're very, very iffy about what's going on here. They're hearing budgets now, not until November. They're hearing it could be north of $100 billion. Where is the Prime Minister? Where's the leadership here? Why aren't you answering questions on the second day of Parliament? Mr. Carney, get it together, man. Here is Francois-Philippe Champagne doing the work of the PM.
I asked you yesterday, I'll ask you again, and maybe it was this morning. How transparent are you going to be with Canadians about what you're cutting? Will they know this program, this service, these jobs, or is it just going to be money that disappears or is reprofiled?
We'll be as transparent as we can be. I think Canadians would want to see, like I said, Canadians have been tightening their belt for quite some time. It's only normal that the federal government does the same. We've been expanding government for the good part of the last decade, and families I know have been tightening their belt. Workers have been tightening their belt. So what we're saying is that what we're asking from Canadians needs to be reflected also at the Government of Canada. This is being more efficient, using technology, reviewing processes, making sure that, I would say, we offer services of the 21st century. With technology of the 21st century. Many of our systems date back to the 20th century. So it's about, making sure that we better serve Canadians and use all the tools available to do that. And at the same time, be very rigorous in our expenses. And we'll be as transparent as we can, telling Canadians what we do. A good example would be the Revenue Agency. When I saw that the service level was not acceptable, I've asked the agency and the board to put a 100 days plan to rectify the situation, and we're going to produce an update report so Canadians can.
That's ironic, isn't it? He was asked a question about transparency and whether or not he would be transparent. But in answering that question about transparency, he didn't answer the question. It was a non-answer. Again, Canadians want to know if in the budget and in the lead up to the budget, you're going to be honest with them and say, we're going to have to slash the school nutrition program by $20 billion. We're going to have to slash the dental care program by $10 billion. We're going to have to cut out some of the drugs from the pharmacare plan. We want to know what you're going to cut. Canadians deserve to know what you're going to cut, because I think we need to have a conversation about whether or not this is the right way. Right now, you've got the Prime Minister who is trying to convince Canadians that what we need to do is twofold. We need to cut our operating budget. That would be the expenses, the day-to-day cost of running a government. But we need to increase the money we're spending on what? What exactly is it that we're going to be spending on? What are these investments? We know there's nation building projects. Part of it is building more homes. Well, the government's already committed $13 billion on top of the $500 million that Justin Trudeau announced for the exact same thing only a year ago. So we're at $13.5 billion being spent on modular homes. But I would think that if home building was profitable, the private sector would do it, like they've always done. I don't understand where he's coming from there. I don't understand if the Prime Minister understands how bad things are for Canadians and the middle class right now. The only way he can cut the operating budget but increase what he calls investments is to print more money. And we also need to print more money because we're going to be about $100 billion in deficit. $100 billion plus. If we print money, that's going to lead to another cycle of Canadians having to pay higher prices for the exact same goods, just like we're doing now. You've noticed everything is more expensive. That's partially because our dollar buys less. That was thanks to inflation. We just got inflation back down below the Bank of Canada's target, 2%. They're cutting interest rates, and now the government wants to go and print hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars more to make our dollar worth even less. This is messed up. I mean, we got two ways that we can go. Carney is going to try and convince us that we need to spend to save Canada. I would argue we actually need to cut to save Canada. We need to get our books in order. Anybody who's ever balanced a budget for their household or their business understands how this works. When your bills are higher than your revenue, you've got to make adjustments to your plan. The Prime Minister could raise taxes, but politically, that's going to be very, very unpopular. He doesn't want to do that. In fact, he just lowered taxes, knowing full well that we are going into a recession and knowing full well that he's going to be spending hundreds of billions of dollars on various different projects. Defense is a great example. He overstuck the landing. He overshot the runway. When it comes to defense, he's going to go all in and right away get Canada up to meeting our NATO spending obligations. I mean, that's good. That should have been done a long time ago, but is now the time? And do we have the money to do that? I don't know, because things are looking pretty bad. And if the options are we're going to have to tighten our belts as a country, or we're going to have to print a whole bunch of money, give it away to many different corporations and consultants and say we did something, but that's going to raise inflation, which means interest rates will have to go back up again. Which one would you pick? If you were the prime minister, would you double down and say, no, we got to do it. Now is the time to invest in Canada. We got to spend all kinds of money, even though we're completely broke and $100 billion in deficit. And our debt is so bad that we spend more on interest on our debt than we do on health care in this country. That's a fact. Or do we tighten our belt? Do we get real sticky on expenses here? Make sure we are watching every penny that goes out the door and pay down some of the debt and get rid of some of that deficit. I don't think anybody could balance a budget that's $100 billion in deficit right away. It's going to have to happen gradually. Shouldn't we start that process now, or do we just go for broke? You know what the Liberals remind me of? Someone who has, say, a line of credit, and they just lost their job, and they think, you know what? There's no chance I'm going to be able to pay this back anytime soon, so I'm just going to blow that line of credit and enjoy myself. It sounds like they're having a party with our money that we do not have. It's not a responsible decision, in my estimation. You're welcome to answer the question that I just asked however you want. The government's plan, or the alternative, which is to tighten our belts, watch every penny that goes out the door, and pay down some of our debt. There's only one possibility. You can only pick one. Are we doubling down on the investment, or are we going to get our books in order? Maybe you feel differently than I do. I think we've got to get things under control, personally. Here's a little bit more of the finance minister speaking yesterday.
Can I ask you, referenced in French the distinction that Mr. Carney wanted to make between operational spending and, I can't remember the other word.
Capital investment.
Thank you very much. How are we going to see that reflected in the budget?
It's going to be very clear. We're going to be presenting to Canadian what we call the operational spend and the capital investment. And to make it simple, Canadians understand, when you buy a house, you invest. When you go to the grocery, you spend. And what I say is that this budget is going to be a generational investment in Canada. There's a lot of parallel that I can make between 1945 and 2025, at a time where our largest trading partner, neighbor, is turning its back on Canada. We had to make significant investments to protect our workers, protect our industry, and now it's going to be that collective effort we need to make sure that Canada is going to be resilient in this new world economic order. We're in the middle of global trade war. We need to make sure that we make smart investment, and the way to do that is that we say we're going to be rigorous in our expenses so we can be ambitious in our investments. So you want to spend less so you have more capital to invest. The type of thing that will give a return on our investment to make sure that we are resilient as a nation.
It doesn't seem like this government is very concerned about an ROI, a return on investment. We invest all kinds of money into various things, and we don't seem to get much out of those investments. I'm really not sure we're on the right track here, guys, and the government has a chance to fix this. Now that they've bought themselves another 6 weeks until the budget comes out, is anyone in Ottawa going to have a sober second thought and say, whoa, we're going to have to gut federal services to get the operating budget under control? With those savings, we could lower taxes, we could pay down some debt, we could invest in things where there's a guaranteed return on investment. There's a lot of different ways we could do it. Or we could just take all that money and print a whole bunch more and throw it out the door because of a trade war. This is the same government that goes on and on and on about how we've got the best trade deal with America. We've got the best trade deal going. 85% of the goods are not tariffed, and that's the best deal in the world. Well, we have that because we already had the CUSMA agreement, the North American Free Trade Agreement before that. So that's part of the reason that 85% of our goods are not being tariffed. But if we've got 85% not being tariffed, then what is this great trade war that's happening here? Because I don't see it. And I think by and large, the average Canadian doesn't feel it. You know what we do feel? The amount of tax coming off of our checks. You know what else we feel is the insane interest rates that we're paying. You know what else we feel? Inflation. The rising cost of just about everything. Something's got to give here. Something's got to give. I don't know that the government is on the right track here, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm sure it's going to come up even more as we get closer and closer to the budget. But again, now that is not going to be until November the 4th. I got to move on. Let's keep going here. I'm going to play some U.S. congressional testimony in just a sec, and I'm going to talk about Charlie Kirk. Several very, very prominent members of the right are out talking right now, and they're all pointing in a similar direction. I'll get to Tucker Carleson coming up in a few minutes, but first off, let me play for you a little bit of Senator Rand Paul. Rand Paul is... He's kind of a libertarian. I wouldn't even really call him a Republican. His dad was a good politician. Rand is a good politician. And one of the things that he is very, very concerned about, he's taken this on as a cause in his work, is Dr. Fauci and what really went on during COVID. See, Rand here thinks that Dr. Fauci knew that that pandemic was coming because he funded the gain of function research that went into creating the coronavirus that wreaked havoc on the world for several years and gave governments permission to run up massive deficits. And we all know all of the consequences that came from COVID. He thinks that Dr. Fauci may not be being truthful with the people, and he wants to subpoena him. But you'll recall, on the eve of Joe Biden leaving office as president, he signed not just a pardon for Dr. Fauci, he made it retroactive for more than a decade. Anything that had been done, even if the public doesn't know about it yet, he would be pardoned for. Well, Rand Paul doesn't accept that. He thinks pardons can be rescinded, and he wants Dr. Fauci in front of Congress testifying and answering questions. Yesterday, he talked about this on Fox News.
Let me get your take on Anthony Fauci. You've done so much work on the COVID disaster, Senator, and I want to get your take on whether or not the pardon of Anthony Fauci is legitimate, given the fact that now we know that Biden may not have even known what was going on. And the pardon was written by an auto pen.
Yeah, we tried for 4 years to get records from the Biden administration. They resisted us. Finally, the Trump administration came in and Secretary Kennedy, and they've given us a lot of information now. And what we've discovered is that Anthony Fauci was destroying federal records and was encouraging other people to destroy federal records. That is a crime. He testified to the House a year ago and said he wasn't doing that. That's a crime to perjure himself. And so we will bring him back. I've asked him to come and testify this fall. If he doesn't come voluntarily, we will subpoena him. The question is he immune because of the pardon? I think that needs to be challenged in court. I have encouraged the Trump administration that they should prosecute this case and challenge the auto pen. I don't think the auto pen is sufficient. I also think there were so many pardons that I'm not sure Biden was aware of all the people he did pardon. There's also not a direct link from the person running the auto pen to the president. The person that was running the auto pen never spoke with the president. So I wonder about really the line of communication and whether these are valid. When Obama did this with legislation, he said, I'll be back in a few days and I'll sign it to make sure it's legitimate. And I think a president's signature on something so important as legislation or pardon is absolutely required.
Unbelievable. Senator, thanks for your work on that.
Okay, we're going to have to wait and see where it goes, but I certainly would like answers. This is something that completely upended the entire world. People died, and people were, in my estimation, coerced into taking a vaccine that they really weren't 100% sure they wanted to take. And as it turns out, it really wasn't tested as much as we were led to believe that it was. And I think that that's a concern. I want to hear more. I'd like to understand exactly what went on here, and I think we need transparency when it comes to COVID. One of the other things I think we need here is an explanation. Dr. Fauci and his team basically set the tone for the rest of the world when it came to public health measures. And he said things like, ooh, wear these cloth masks, social distance, keep 6 feet apart. We all remember that from COVID, but of course now we've learned there was no science behind any of that. They made it up. You know how many family gatherings people missed? How many funerals and weddings and baptisms and you name it that people missed because of the rules that Dr. Fauci put into place, and it turns out there was no science behind any of it anyway. There needs to be a full, proper investigation into what went on during COVID, and it needs to be done right away. Charlie Kirk was assassinated a week ago tomorrow. Hard to believe it's only been a week. Wow. And a lot has happened. There's a lot of big conversations happening. There's a few developments there and a few involving the FBI as well. So I'm going to jump around a little bit here, and I'm conscious of my time. I promised you I'd get it done in an hour, and I'm still trying to stick to that timeline. So I'm going to play a whole bunch of different things here for you. Try and follow along. First off, the Utah County District Attorney reading some of the text exchange between Charlie Kirk's assassin and his transgender boyfriend roommate. This is after he committed the murder. Listen to this.
The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange, then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson, I am. I'm sorry. Roommate, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Roommate, "Why?" Robinson, "Why did I do it?" Roommate, "Yeah." Robinson, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence."
This was premeditated. It was planned. It was always intended that he was going to kill Charlie Kirk. And that's basically a confession, nearest I can tell. Yesterday, I played for you some audio from U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio explaining why people who celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk online may not be allowed to return to America. And if you're there, you may be deported from America if you're not a permanent resident or an American citizen. Yesterday, he was asked to follow up about that statement. Here's Secretary Rubio.
Well, I got to think about Charlie Kirk. You're a foreigner and you're out just celebrating the assassination of someone who was speaking somewhere. I mean, we don't want you. Why would we want to give a beef to someone who thinks it's good that someone was murdered in the public square? It's just common sense to me. We revoke visas of people. I don't know. We revoke visas of people that are inside the country. We've certainly been denying visas. I mean, think about it. I want everybody to think about this for a moment. Okay? You're out there celebrating the assassination in cold blood of someone. And then you want to come in. Why would we want anything like that in our country as a tourist of anything? We don't want to live here. We got to go a process and all these, you know. But I'm sure there'll be some that are revoked. There's no shortage of idiots around the world that decide it's a great idea to murder someone. I sure want people like that in our country. By the way, it's bad that we have people that are U.S. citizens that feel that way. We can't revoke their visa, not have a visa. But you're a foreigner. Why would we want to allow it to the United States, someone who's in favor of murder? We don't want pro-murder people in America.
Well said from Secretary Rubio. Now we're going to go to a different place here on the pod. And again, I am trying to get all of this in as quickly as I can. This is, before I get to the congressional testimony, I want to play for you a little bit of Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is going to suggest that Charlie Kirk was in danger because he was about to change his position on Israel. Whereas he had been a stalwart supporter of Israel, apparently he was mortified at what's happening in Gaza. Understandable. And apparently the Israelis did not want Charlie Kirk to change his position. This is not me. This is Charlie Kirk. Sorry, this is Tucker Carlson talking about Charlie Kirk. Listen.
He did not like Bibi Netanyahu, and he said that to me many times, and he said to people around him many times. He felt that Bibi Netanyahu was a very destructive force. He was appalled by what was happening in Gaza. He was, above all, resentful that he believed Netanyahu was using the United States to prosecute his wars for the benefit of his country, and that it was shameful and embarrassing and bad for the United States, and he resented it. Didn't hate Netanyahu. He wasn't out there with a placard saying that, but he certainly expressed that to me and a lot of other people. And there's no question that Bibi's defenders on the internet will call me a liar or a kook, but that's a fact. And enough text messages exist that I think it can probably be verified in pretty short order. Not that it needs to be, because that is true. Shortly after that speech, there was a very intense attack on Charlie, and to some extent on me, not that I really noticed. But on him, I have no donors. He had $100 million worth of donors. And so, because he was involved in a different project from just yapping on the internet, which is what I do for a living, he was dependent to a great extent on his donors, of course. It's a nonprofit. And they went after him and tormented him. Not all, of course. Many were supportive. But the ones who were offended by my speech, and there was a small, very intense group who were, tormented Charlie Kirk until the day he died.
I'm going to leave Tucker Carlson there, but I also want to tell you that if you want to see his full remarks, they are available on his podcast, Tucker Carlson. I got to get to some of the congressional testimony that happened yesterday in America. FBI Director Kash Patel was being grilled by several people who want to try and make him seem incompetent, like he is not doing his job. One of the people who really got into it yesterday with Kash Patel was New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. And Cory is... I'm not even going to bother putting a label on it. Listen to some of this exchange, the two of them going back and forth.
To what you said before the grand jury.
To whatever was released. Under my understanding, Senator, that the Department of Justice...
You and I both understand the law. Let me finish. I understand under Rule 6 of the Federal Rules of Procedure, a grand jury witness, in this case you, is not barred from sharing their grand jury testimony. This is an oversight hearing. This is germane to your integrity and credibility. You know right now whether or not you testified that President Trump declassified the documents at issue in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. Why are you refusing to answer that simple yes or no question right now?
Because the premise of your question is inaccurate, and
there is no premise to my question, but trying to get to an order of what is truth or not.
How do you How do you know what was asked in the grand jury if you weren't there?
Mr. Patel, this is a mockery you're making of this hearing and simple.
That's a great question. How would you know what was asked of the grand jury if you weren't there? Or were you there? I don't think he was there. Let me play where this exchange really heated up.
I don't think you're fit to hand the bureau, but here's the thing, Mr. Patel. I think you're not going to be around long. I think this might be your last oversight hearing. Because as much as you supplicate yourself to the will of Donald Trump and not the Constitution of the United States of America, Donald Trump has shown us in his first term and in this term, he is not loyal to people like you. He will cut you loose. This may be the last time I have a hearing with you because I don't think you're long for your job. But I'm going to tell you this. I pray for you. I pray for you that you can step up and defend your oath, defend the Constitution, and do a much better job of defending this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to say anything?
Yes,
at
sir.
this point?
that rant of false information does not bring this country together. If you want to work on bringing this country, it's my time, not yours.
My God.
If you want to talk about
dividing this country,
it is
I follow you on your social media posts that tear this country apart.
To address your falsehoods.
You can try all you want
in this country.
to not take responsibility for what you have said. Sir, you're making a mockery of this committee. Sir, you don't tell me my time is over. The people of New Jersey tell me what my time is. You can't lecture me.
You can tell me my time's over.
You may be the charge of the FBI, but I am not afraid of you,
Mr. Chairman.
Not afraid of you.
Wow. I mean, just totally unhinged. This is the U.S. government and just not putting forward their best and brightest here. It's really shameful. I do want to play more of this, though, because it did at times touch on Epstein and on Charlie Kirk. Listen to a little bit more of Kash Patel yesterday in front of Congress.
People to believe that? Do you think they're stupid?
No. I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates.
Not in the weeds?
What I am doing is protecting this country, providing historic reform, and combating the weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you. And we have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
Well, you can take an internet troll.
Take it to the bank that the FBI is protecting this country and the state and citizens of California. We are bringing historic reform.
Point of order.
But all you care about is a child sex predator that was prosecuted by a prior administration, and the Obama Justice Department and the Biden Justice Department did squat. And what did President Trump do? Bring new charges courageously. And what have we done?
Chairman,
you said I'm the most transparent FBI director in history. 33,000 pages of information to you. I challenge you to say anything credibly to the truth. Go ahead and run to the cameras where you want to go now.
Both of you be quiet.
Wow. Kash Patel debating Adam Schiff there in that congressional testimony. That's wild to me. And it's over the Epstein files. And to be honest with you, I'm one of those people who thinks we need all of the Epstein files. And I think that every time they delay it, it just makes it seem like people in power now are more and more guilty. We need those Epstein files and let the people see exactly what went on there. In fact, there was an exchange, another exchange actually, about the Epstein files. I'm going to play this for you now. This is, let me see here. This is Senator Kennedy asking about the Epstein files, and a great question. Who did Epstein traffic these women to? That's at the heart of the Epstein issue.
You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Okay.
I mean, that's completely ridiculous, but I understand where Kash Patel is coming from here. It seems that a lot of evidence got destroyed before he and his colleagues took over at the FBI. It seems like a lot of evidence had already been scraped out of their files or hidden somewhere, buried, whatever you want to call it. Kash Patel, who needs to have a case that he can prosecute in court, needs evidence, and it doesn't seem like there's any evidence there. However, there must be evidence. There has to be evidence because the simple fact is, if Epstein didn't traffic those women to anyone in particular, then why the hell is Ghislaine Maxwell in jail? If there was no person procuring the services of those girls, then why is she in jail? Because that was the whole premise of putting her there, was because she helped traffic those girls. It doesn't make any sense, and I see both sides of it. From an FBI standpoint, they don't have a lot of actual evidence that they can point to and say, here's the smoking gun, here's the people that he trafficked to, yada, yada, yada. But I also don't believe that evidence is gone forever. I think we're going to find it. I think that I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure eventually we're going to find out what went on Epstein Island. It's taken way too long. I think every day that goes by without any answers, Trump looks more and more guilty. And frankly, I want answers. Everybody wants answers. We want to know what those ultra wealthy and very powerful people did to young girls facilitated by Epstein and Maxwell. Everybody wants to know. Time to release those files. Let me see here. There is one more actually from Kash Patel, and I know I've gone over. God, I'm terrible at sticking to timelines. You should see my radio show. It's a hot mess. It's never on time. One more question. This is from Senator Hirono asking a question about women in the FBI. Listen to this. It's about a minute long.
One question I had is that you are now requiring applicants to be able to do a certain kind of pull-ups, which a lot of women cannot because of physiological differences. Are you requiring these kinds of pull-ups?
We are requiring a physical program at BFTC at Quantico because FBI agents carrying guns in the field have to chase down bad guys and do really hard work. The physical fitness standards of those agents
So
are
are
being
you requiring
appropriately
these
assessed.
kinds of pull-ups?
We are requiring everybody to pass the 1811 standards at BFTC. If you want to chase down a bad guy and put him in handcuffs, you better be able to do a pull-up.
The reason I ask is that there are concerns about whether or not being able to do these kinds of harsh pull-ups is really required of FBI agents.
Doing one
Anyway,
pull-up
Mr.
is not
Patel,
harsh,
I
and there are
am
always
greatly
medical
concerned.
exemptions to that.
I think that's reasonable. I don't know that many people would disagree with that. Yeah, for all the reasons that he just said, you've got to be able to do one pull-up. That excludes me, by the way. There's absolutely no chance now that I could ever be an FBI agent because I don't think I could do a pull-up. That's just all there is to it. Friends, like I said, I'm acknowledging I went over. I did just get word that the Bank of Canada did cut interest rates by only 1/4 point. It doesn't go nearly far enough, and I'm pretty sure that history will prove me right, and we're writing history now. Every day in real time. Tomorrow, I will have another episode that'll include audio from that son of a bitch, Tiff Macklem, explaining why he chose to only lower interest rates 1/4 point today when people needed much, 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 much more than that. Also, him trying to explain why when inflation was 1.7%, he didn't cut rates. When inflation went up to 1.9%, he did cut rates. This guy is a walking contradiction and bad news for Canada. I'm going to leave it there, but believe me, we are going to carry on tomorrow and we're going to cut through the nonsense. You're going to hear a lot of stuff that you will not hear from the mainstream media. I'm promising you, most of them are not covering this stuff. And I know that I didn't even get to the Chrystia Freeland stuff today, and I really wanted to. I'm just going to ask one more time. What is it about Ukraine? Now Canada has a special envoy to Ukraine. The godfather of Chrystia Freeland's children has appointed her Canada's special envoy to Ukraine. She's going to be in charge of the rebuilding effort for Ukraine. And frankly, again, what is it about Ukraine? What is it? I don't know. But we'll talk about it. We're going to be talking about a lot more right here on Scott Fox After 9 as the episodes continue. I'll see you here in less than 24 hours, and I'll leave you with the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now.